Presentation of the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
They really are so many rules.
It's time for your weekly look inside UCLA Athletics.
It's block 10-5 daylight end zone. Bang!
USC.
UCLA.
We are the mighty Bruins.
That's another 100-yard
That's
game,
right.
and that's a UCLA lead.
Well, UCLA beat Stanford. Yeah, I'm seeing ghosts. Stand by, guys.
Live from Platea inside the Luskin Conference Center on the campus of UCLA, this is the Bruin Insider Show. Coming up, we've got 60 minutes of the best Bruins talk anywhere, including a chat with UCLA head coaches, student athletes, and the latest in on-campus athletics news live from Westwood. Now, let's go live to Platea inside the Luskin Conference Center and join our hosts, Nick Cope and Brian Finley.
And how about that as a statement win for the UCLA football team, finally getting the job done against Stanford and putting to bed an 11-game losing streak to the Cardinal. And now the question is, how does this momentum, this strong play, carry over into the rest of the season? And I'm sure we'll discuss this on the show. Welcome in to another edition of the Bruin Insider Show with Nick Cope and former Bruin quarterback Wayne Cook. So much to discuss on the program, particularly about this prior game and the win against Stanford. Enhanced pass rush. Kyle Phillips continues to emerge. Joshua Kelly returning to glory. And then, of course, Arizona State coming up on Saturday for homecoming. And these two programs, Nick, in a sense, are kind of similar. They're both young coaches, or at least in their beginnings with the team, second years, and they're trying to get this youth movement going on either side.
Yeah, and they've played a lot of close games these last few years as well, including last year, just 3 points. But coming off that Stanford game defensively for UCLA, hard to take too much away against a Stanford offense that just looked overmatched, but they did execute. That's the key thing. But offensively, it looks like this thing is humming right now. They put up 34 points on a Stanford defense that held Washington to 13. They held Oregon to 21. This is now 3 straight games where they've been able to consistently move the ball. We also want to talk about some basketball as well. Prince Ali, caught up with him earlier today with the season just a couple weeks away. You've got the preseason showcase coming up tomorrow. He was great to talk to, talked about growing up in the Bronx and how he sees himself fitting in with this team.
Yeah, so much to get to, but coming up first, Wayne Cook, and he knows a thing or two about facing a pass rush, and he'll describe what he saw as far as the Bruins' enhanced pass rush against Stanford. That is coming up next. You're listening to the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
What was the original crowdfunding project?
Have a question for any of our guests? Tweet us at UCLA Athletics using the hashtag Bruin Insider Show, or visit UCLABruins.com/insider to submit your question each week. Now let's rejoin our hosts, Nick Cope and Brian Finley.
Team Talk is brought to you by the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Born and brewed in Southern California since 1963 and home of the original ice blended drink, the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf has grown to over 1,200 stores in nearly 30 countries. Visit coffeebean.com. Well, guys, we are still reveling in the fact that UCLA got their second conference win in a beatdown of Stanford. 34-16 was the final score. And as we bring in Wayne here in just a moment, one of the lingering issues for this team has been the pass rush, right? So that has been a storyline throughout this season. And, well, we really did get to Stanford's quarterback in Jack West, who, by the way, was in his first career start. He looked like a guy who had just been out there for the first time. Threw a bounce pass out there. It was like almost a Pete Maravich bounce pass, trying to get those checkdowns going. And it was just really tough for him out there. And Wayne, as you think about the 7 sacks that the Bruins were able to capitalize on and put the pressure on Jack West, was it more or less how much would you take it as an improvement in our side of things, but also their offensive line had so many freshmen out there as well. And so how do you kind of gauge where that took us as far as improvement on our end?
Well, it's weird because remember, this team beat Washington. I mean, you guys pointed it out before, and these same offensive and defensive linemen were playing. I know the third-string quarterback is a huge difference. They didn't have Mills, and they had Mills versus at quarterback versus Washington, and that does make a big difference. But when you just watch the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, it was a butt-whooping by UCLA. There were some changes, and I tried to get Coach Kelly to be specific about it after the game, but he pretty much talked about the rotation being, they were rotating guys in enough to keep everybody fresh, but you could see a concerted effort to have more speed on the defensive line. You saw a lot more of the speed rushers versus like Isabor and, Odighizuwa in there. And now not to say that Mafi and some of the other big bodies aren't doing a good job, but it was almost like it was a little bit of different approach to harass a young quarterback. And to me, if I didn't think about what the quarterback was doing, because listen, a good quarterback can get rid of the ball quickly and make the right reads on time. He didn't have any time to breathe. So I really don't care who the quarterback was in that game. UCLA's defensive line had its way with Stanford's offensive line. And remember last week, you guys, at the end of the show, I just was kind of sick of Stanford. And I kind of ended the show last week with, screw it, let's just go beat these guys. I got to be honest with you. I am flat out pumped up to see us. We've been getting better. We've had these kind of like improvements at times throughout the year, but for 2 weeks, and you guys pointed out in a row, really maybe 3, but for the last 2 games, the Oregon State game and now this game, I really believe that the offense is starting to click and playing better. But to see the defense come around now, we still don't know. I thought the secondary played great, but we still don't know because, to be honest with you, it was obvious that Jack West and that passing game, they really didn't have a whole lot of options. They didn't really look good at all. So still think we're going to learn something about the pass defense this week. But as far as I'm concerned, the front sevens played absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, you saw UCLA routinely able to bring 8 guys in the box. I feel like sometimes we even saw 9 guys. The safeties really creeping forward. More to your point about the speed on the defensive line, though, Wayne, we saw something that I'm not sure we've seen a ton of, but it resulted in a couple sacks. These delayed stunts where you'd have both the tackles and the ends rushing on the outside, and then after a beat or two, the outside linebackers would then come in the middle, and the quarterback thinks he's got a lane to step up, and then all of a sudden he's got Jason Harris or Keyshawn Lucier South right up in his teeth. And I really liked those play calls as well. It was just nice to see. Yes, it was a third-string quarterback, but UCLA executed and took care of business when the opportunity was there.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, Nick, that was you have speed and athleticism on your defensive front, and it gives you, in my opinion, more opportunities. More you can do more. Now can it backfire on you at some point where you just get pounded on? Every week's a different game plan and a different team. But I like the creativity. I just thought that it was something that, and I know not just us, but a lot of Bruin fans have wanted to see a game where we really got after the opposing team's quarterback. And hopefully this is a thing that, because confidence grows. And I think this team, I had a chance to witness some of the celebration in the locker room and to watch the defensive group, like a lot of the defensive linemen kind of huddled together after the game and were just so pumped because I think they know that they played, as a group, maybe their best game of the year. And so it was fun to see, and now they just build on that. And that's what's fun. I mean, there's still plenty of winnable games. I mean, I don't want to overreact to one win, but there are plenty of winnable games, starting with Arizona State's coming up. So I'm pretty excited about what this team can do. There's still some question marks, but they are moving in the right direction.
You're listening to the Bruin Insider Show with Nick Cope, Wayne Cook, Brian Fenley here on UCLA Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Wayne, another sign that the defense is turning the corner. How about we forced a turnover? We hadn't done that against Arizona or Oregon State. And in this game, we had Antonio Mafi, Darnay Holmes getting in the action and forcing the fumble, recovery by Stephen Blaylock in the third quarter. It was the first turnover forced by the Bruins since the Washington State game, which we had, I think, 6 in that game. Yeah. So what does this say to you, Wayne, about finally the defense getting a little bit more aggressive when it comes to the takeaways?
Well, turnovers are a weird thing. I can go back to when I was a player and the year that we played in the Rose Bowl. I think we led the country in turnover ratio. That's a good stat. You want that stat if you're going to be a good team. One of the things that causes turnovers, though, is an aggressive style of play, being in the right spot, swarm defense. When you do the right things defensively, I know that you can try and force turnovers. You can come up with all these different gadgets and different ways to try to encourage turnovers. But just playing good, solid defense a lot of times, and those things will happen. So I think obviously every time you get a turnover, it helps. It's one of those really big stats that all coaches pay attention to. So again, step in the right direction. But if you think about it, the whole scheme of thing is more aggressive defense. We played pretty tight coverage in the secondary. You guys already pointed out safeties were closer to the line of scrimmage. I thought Guidry had a fantastic game. There were players. I'm seeing a corner in Darnay Holmes who really is starting. I mean, we're noticing how healthy he is because you're starting to see him on some return. He's going back to return kicks now sometimes. I think he's fully healthy. So there are some things that are trending in the right direction for UCLA. I think health is one of them. I thought that bye week was a perfect time for it. To be quite honest with you, getting time off before this game with a Thursday game also is great because you get a little bit of a break. And we still have another bye coming before that stretch at the end of the year that can be pretty difficult. So the schedule, I think, sets up for UCLA to have some success.
Yeah, you've got back-to-back home games, and then that bye week you mentioned before you finish with Utah, USC, and then Cal at home. We touched on the defensive side, a lot of things to like, also things to like on the offensive side of the ball as well. We'll do that next with Wayne when we come back. You're listening to the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
4 out of 5 professional tailgaters agree. Meat is delicious. The other guy was wrong. Score the best tasting meats on the planet at uswellnessmeats.com. Use discount code Bruin to save
The Bruin Insider Show continues now. Back out to Platea inside the Luskin Conference Center on the campus of UCLA. Here's Nick Cope and Brian Finley.
Today's show is brought to you in part by your Southern California Chevy dealers. It's Chevy Truck Month. Head to your Southern California Chevy dealer today and get long-term financing on the all-new Chevy Silverado, the best-selling full-size pickup in L.A. Learn more at SoCalChevy.com. Nick Cope, Brian Finley, and we bring back in Wayne Cook. So offensively, it seems like this team is starting to hit its stride. And what I like is that it's balanced. Over the last 3 games, you're averaging 245 on the ground, 219 through the air. This last game against Stanford, a little bit more on the ground, but nice 1-2 punch here through the air and on the ground. And Wayne, looking at Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming back from that injury, he did it through the air with his arm and on the ground with his legs. Statistically, you look at it, and nothing too crazy, but that's why we watch the game. And you could just see that he has made improvements as this season has gone along, making a lot of the key little decision, using his legs, taking off at opportune moments, throwing the ball away. I know you and Matt touched on that on the broadcast. It just made some really nice throws in general, and it seems like he's found a nice, reliable receiver in Kyle Phillips now.
I was really, really happy for Dorian. This is what's crazy about what we forget sometimes. You know, Cade McNown goes down in history as you know, in some people's minds, the greatest quarterback that UCLA's ever had. His first 2 years were just okay. He played 4 years. His last 2 years, he won 20 games and was a Heisman Trophy candidate and played in a Rose Bowl, and, you know, he went on to be great. I think sometimes we want players to be really good, really quick. You know, I played with Tommy Maddox in his freshman year. He was 5-6, I think, and maybe he won 6 games. I don't remember. Threw as many interceptions as he threw touchdowns. His next year, before he went pro, he won 9 games and was a lot better. Drew Olson, another guy that played young. You know, he had his best year as a senior. You know, we're taking that guys that now that by their sophomore year, sometimes we're ready to kind of be like, okay, I'm done with this guy. Let's move on to the next before we give him a chance to really learn how to play this game. Playing quarterback is really hard. And I'm not going to lie to you. I thought that Austin Burton played well enough to be in consideration to get another game. And, you know, Dorian and the coaches that are with these players all the time made the decision, and Chip Kelly never wavered. He said, my guy is Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And, you know, we see him in practice every day. We know what he can do. We know what kind of a man he is, what kind of an athlete he is, and what he's capable of. And, you know, there's just always been little things that have kept him from maybe looking like you want your college quarterback to look. And part of that's the team you play on. Remember, when you're a quarterback and you play for a very, very young team, you know, sometimes the players around you don't always help as well. And so the decision is to go with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and he's really smart. And all great quarterbacks find this out early on if you have a guy at receiver. And in my opinion, as of right now, the guy at receiver is Kyle Phillips. And, you know, we've been waiting on his breakout. It seems like a couple games in a row now he's been really, really good. Kyle Phillips is special. I think he has a chance to be an All-American type guy. Then when you throw into the fact that now the running game, you know, behind, and I know that Demetric Felton didn't have a great game, but Joshua Kelly had a great game. And if you've got those 3 guys, and I know there's other guys that can contribute. You got Felton, who's been good all year and has had 2 games where he hasn't had quite as much success. But remember, even when you're not making plays, when the other team has to worry about you, you help your team. Okay? So 2 of your big 3, as far as your explosive players, had really, really good games. And the offensive line is coming around. They played against a great front 7, and we had a running back go for, I don't remember what his total yards were, but like 180 something. So it was pretty neat to watch. And Dorian, when he's mixing his legs, throwing the ball away, his leadership, it was probably his most complete game. I know the Washington State game may have been more fun, but from beginning to end, he was the leader of this team. And the only thing I'll say, because I have to throw in one critique, he does miss a couple of the easy ones. A couple of the passes where you just go, dude, why'd he miss that one? And usually it's just because his legs aren't caught up with his arm. Like he's just a little bit behind and getting his feet set. But he'll learn that. He said it to me after the game. Coach Bible's always getting on me about throwing the ball away and doing the little things. Well, that's how young quarterbacks get better. So as long as he knows that, you guys, then he's got to, it doesn't mean he won't have setbacks, but he's going to keep improving, and I know he wants to improve.
Wayne, a couple observations I had. When DTR had that touchdown run, it was the fake the dive, and then you had the RPO. And you look at the touchdown run, and he hits the perimeter. But Devin Asiasi, I think he blocked two guys on the edge. I think that was fantastic, and that was something that has to be lauded. And then other observations I had, it looked like when Kyle Phillips was running that slant route that it was pretty much open all night. And I know you've said that. Nick has said that. It's evident that this guy really has found his way, and he continues to trend in the right direction when you look at his numbers. And then as far as Dorian Thompson-Robinson, how about his awareness, it seems, in the pocket? I think there were times where he felt the pressure a little bit better, knew that he didn't have to completely flush out of the pocket, but he could bunny hop his way around and then chuck a pass downfield. And then you said the offensive line, too. How would you rate this offensive line as far as this game compared to other games this season? Because you had a 54-yard run from Joshua Kelly, and you had another 50-plus yard run, and it just seemed like Joshua Kelly was returning to glory, and a product of that has to be the offensive line starting to groove.
Well, there's a whole lot to unpack there. And first of all, that's fun that you brought up, because I saw that block, the double block by Asiasi. And if you want to be a good football team, you have to have players that aren't as concerned about stats as wins. We know that Devin can catch the ball, but as a tight end, and for him, if he wants to have a career in the NFL with his body, if he can block and he can catch, he's got a future. And so, that's one of those plays you put on your highlight reel. Like when we're all high school people and we have huddle for, and we're creating highlight reels. That's when you put in there. I blocked this guy, and then I turned back and blocked this guy, and my quarterback scored a touchdown. Every single coach that sees that goes, that's the kind of guy I want on my team. So that's awesome right there. Kyle Phillips, the underrated part about his game, everybody likes to see the catches and the and what he does when he has the ball. But man, if you watch him, and it sounds like you did, Brian, he's open a lot. Like even when he doesn't get the ball, he's open a lot. And he just runs really, really good routes. He has great feet. He's a technician when he runs his routes. And I think a lot of young quarterbacks can learn from that as well. And then your last comment, and I think we've noticed this before. Early in the year, Dorian was trying to escape the pocket backwards a lot. And there was and he was doing it against some really good teams. And I should remind people, UCLA's first 3 games now, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, and San Diego State, are a combined 19-2. Like they're really good. They just keep winning. And in 2 of those games, UCLA was within 10, right? But Dorian was kind of struggling with some really good teams, and he was losing too many yards. Going back to Coach Bible and the coaching staff and the way they're coaching him, moving forward in the pocket, making good decisions, not taking negative plays. He had a scramble, by the way, in this game that I wouldn't recommend to non-athletes. And by the way, remember that he turned one way and then saw a guy was about to destroy him and then turned back the other way and escaped. It was absolutely like there's not a whole lot of guys in the country that have the ability athletically to scramble like that. So you see these flashes of brilliance from his pocket awareness, his ability to move, his decision to run. And if he just cleans up a few of the things, in the passing game with keeping his feet under him, again, I don't want to get too excited by one game, but these are some trends that we've seen over the last few games that he's played in.
Yeah, I think night and day when you just look at his pocket presence and his comfort in the pocket in this game versus where he was at the beginning of the season, just looks so much more comfortable. Yep. And now, Wayne, as we look to this weekend, we got to see if this team can do it 2 games in a row now. And they're going to have Arizona State is interesting. We're going to get into it in just a second, but a team that when you look at the schedule, it's like, okay, who have they played? But a team with talent on both sides of the ball that are going to be hungry coming into the Rose Bowl. So we'll discuss that with Wayne next. You're listening to the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
Toyo Tires, full line of
Have a question for any of our guests? Tweet us at UCLA Athletics using the hashtag Bruin Insider Show, or visit UCLABruins.com/insider to submit your question each week. Now let's rejoin our hosts, Nick Cope and Brian Finley.
Located in the UCLA Luskin Conference Center and Hotel right on campus, Platia Restaurant is the perfect place for your next gathering or celebration. Enjoy quality time over their family-style meals from the heart of Bruin country. Visit PlatiaUCLA.com for more information. And so now we look ahead to homecoming on Saturday. The Bruins are hosting Arizona State, and if we look at the Pac-12 standings, ASU and UCLA tied for second. They're both 2-2, along with Arizona that is in second place. And all three of those teams only a game out of first in the South Division, with Utah and USC right there. And then you consider this ASU and UCLA team are very similar in a lot of ways, just beyond their Pac-12 record. Coaches in their second years with the programs, faith in young quarterbacks, mixing and matching on the offensive line, youth on the offensive line. You've got UCLA with two freshmen on the offensive line. ASU has two true freshmen, including one at the left tackle spot, Ladarius Henderson. He is 17 years old, and he has gone in and is starting at left tackle. Did not play football until his junior year of high school. But, Wayne, if we could look at what the Sun Devils did last week, and it was a loss to Utah. It's Utah, and they're a really tough team, and the offensive line for Arizona State, I think, is going to be a really important thing to key in on here. But how much can you take from the fact that they give up 3 sacks to Utah, and how much do you think that the struggles will linger on into this game against UCLA?
Well, just real quick, guys, can we just gloat a little bit more about the win over Stanford just for a second? I just want to really just get it out there that we had not beat Stanford in a ridiculously long time, and I am so stinking glad that we have finally got that monkey off of our back. I was so sick of losing to those guys, and it was a flat-out dominating performance. And so there it is. I just wanted to say one more thing before we moved on, because that was really, really enjoyable. All right, Now I'm done with that. So anyway, yes, Brian, I think we could take a lot away from it, but here's the deal, though. Utah's really good. Utah's really good. They're a team that right now, even though if everybody kind of wins out, and this is crazy to say, but USC is got the tiebreaker because they beat Utah. But Utah right now is the cream of the crop, and we'll deal with that game later, and hopefully we'll still only have 2 losses, so that game means a ton. And I think that's possible, by the way, with Arizona State and Colorado coming up. But Arizona State, they're good. You mentioned Herm Edwards. He's legitimately a good coach, and one of the reasons why that they're a well-coached team, think about how many close games they play. I mean, pretty much almost, and I know last week didn't turn out that way, but almost every game they play in feels like it's a one-score game. I mean, it's like it comes down to the end, and they find a way to win a lot of them. And that's a sign of a well-coached team. They do what they're supposed to do when it matters the most. And even there's sometimes when Arizona State wins game that you probably feel like they got outplayed. That's another sign of a really good coaching staff. So the one thing you're going to get from Arizona State is a prepared team. Yeah, they have some youth, but they're well coached. Utah getting 3 sacks, by the way, shouldn't be like one of those things you go, wow, because that's kind of what Utah can do. Their defensive front is as good as it gets. So UCLA is going to have to come prepared to play. This is a team that's probably better right now than Stanford because Stanford, like we said, with a third-string quarterback, Jaden Daniels has proven that he's an elite freshman quarterback. He's really, really good, but he's still a freshman quarterback. So, they've got their hands full this week, but I think that UCLA, if they can build on this win, keep playing the kind of offense they're playing, and here's the key, you guys, that pass defense was not tested. It really wasn't. I want to see what this defense can do against a quarterback that's been playing all year and can throw the ball and see if they really step up and have turned the corner and start playing some really good pass defense.
Well, Wayne, I think to your point, I heard this stat going into that Utah game for ASU. So now after that result, I believe it's 12 out of their 15 conference games under Herm Edwards have been decided by 1 score. Yeah. Which is a really astounding stat, including last year's against the Bruins, just a 3-point victory in Tempe. But looking at this game this year, you bring up Jaden Daniels and how he's been able to have some success this year. When I look at this game, and sure you can say this with every game, that it starts in the trenches, but with ASU's vulnerability up front, I look at trying to contain Jaden Daniels in the pocket. He's been at his most dangerous when he can get outside and force you to make a decision whether to play him as a runner or to hang back in coverage. And then, of course, going with that, if you can try and limit Eno Benjamin a little bit and prevent him from really running rampant. But those are kind of the 2 things I look at on that side of the ball. How do you see UCLA's defense going against that offense?
I totally agree with you on Jaden Daniels. Keep him in the pocket. I think, obviously they have some talent. I don't think they're loaded up in talent. As far as receiving goes, Brandon Ayuk he's averaging 20 yards a catch. He's got 5 touchdowns, 32 receptions. But then you've got Eno Benjamin, their running back, catches quite a few balls, and Kyle Williams has 25 receptions. They've got some guys, but I don't know if it's daunting. I think they're solid. I think the thing that scares me the most, and I love what you said about the trenches, and I agree that UCLA's got to continue to be good up front. But Eno Benjamin, who's maybe not had quite the year he expected to have, he talk about a guy that came into this season as like an elite back in the Pac-12. I think he struggled a little bit. And part of that's because of what you talked about, the inexperience on the offensive line. But it feels like they're getting better. Like when you watch him play, he's definitely got talent. So UCLA is going to have to do a good job of containing Jaden Daniels, trying to keep him in that pocket and make him a thrower, as you guys pointed out. But I'm always concerned when it comes to UCLA about the other team establishing that run game. If you can prevent them from doing that, and then again, I'll go back to that pass defense. And if that pass defense can step up and play a good game, and I know I just mentioned pretty much everybody, but if they can keep building on what they did last week and keep getting better, I think they'll do a good job. I really have a good feeling about this game, guys. I think Arizona State has won games, but they've been close. I think, as you pointed out, Nick, earlier, their schedule hasn't been the greatest. Michigan State hasn't turned out to be what people thought they were going to be this year. They, have no offense, at all. And so I don't know if that's as great of a win as it looked at the time. So I think that Arizona State is very, very beatable. But I think that UCLA still has to know that its goal this week is to play its best game of the year. And if they do that, they'll win this game.
And then quickly, Wayne, on the other side of the ball, we haven't really touched on UCLA's offense matching up against ASU's defense, right. Which has been fine. Washington State was able to move the ball on them. Obviously, Colorado defeated Arizona State at home. Anything stand out on that side of the ball? You got Danny Gonzalez, who's a Rocky Long disciple, so you'll see another 3-3-5 look, right. Similar to what you saw against San Diego State.
No, I'm going to channel my inner Matt Stevens right now and just let's give that guy Joshua Kelly, number 27, the ball a lot. Don't forget about Demetric Felton just because he had a little bit of an off game. And when I say an off game, it seemed like every time poor Demetric ran the ball, he we missed a block and he ran into a wall. That sometimes isn't on him. But he still made some nice catches late in the game. But I think with those guys in Phillips, and we haven't talked about Jalen Irwin a lot, but with the development of Demetric Felton and a completely healthy Joshua Kelly that's starting to get those 100-yard games now, it just changes our offense. The offensive line, ever since Duke Clemens has been inserted into this group. Remember that they were rotating Alec Anderson in the tackle spots on both sides, not because anybody was hurt, but just to keep people fresh. All of that bodes well for UCLA going forward. As you get into the latter part of the season, if you can run the ball, and Joshua Kelly, you guys, is a tank. He's explosive. He's got great balance. He reads holes well, and he can punish you if you try to tackle him. If Joshua Kelly gets going, and then we have a little bit of our man, DTR, keeping the ball every once in a while, being explosive with his legs, this offense is only going to keep getting better. It really is. And so I think if UCLA does its thing, I think they can take care of this Arizona State defense.
That is real talk from Wayne Cook. Wayne, thank you so much for coming on, and we look forward to hearing you on Saturday, part of the broadcast.
You guys are the best. Everything feels better when you beat Stanford, but now let's go beat those Sun Devils.
No doubt about it. A 4:30 kickoff on Saturday. And coming up next, Nick Cope spoke with Prince Ali of the men's basketball team as we inch closer to the start of the regular season. You're listening to the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
The new UCLA Meyer and Renee Luskin
60 minutes of the best Bruins talk anywhere. This is the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
Make it an unforgettable Bruin football weekend and stay at the new UCLA Luskin Conference Center and Hotel, located a short walk away from the UCLA Router bus that can take you straight from campus to the Rose Bowl without the hassle of driving. Visit lcc.ucla.edu for more information, and soon you'll be able to make it a Bruin basketball weekend as well. Nick Cope with Brian Fenley, and can you believe it? We're just 2 weeks away from the start of the UCLA basketball season. Plenty going on here to get you ready, starting with Wednesday's preseason showcase. Mick Cronin said we'll see a full-go scrimmage for a half, and then he was a little mum on the rest, but it sounds like fans and students will have the opportunity to partake in activities and maybe some on-court challenges with the players as well. It's a young team, 2/3 being underclassmen, but one of those 5 upperclassmen figures to play a large leadership role. Prince Ali is back as a 5th-year senior. I caught up with him earlier today. We talked about his decision to return for his final year of eligibility and growing up in the Bronx. Good to be joined with Prince Ali, the Bronx native Prince Ali. What was it like growing up there, learning to play basketball?
It was an interesting experience growing up in the Bronx, but it was a great experience. I cherished my childhood there. There's a basketball court everywhere. It's the concrete jungle of New York, so that's how I fell in love with the game. Everybody played, all my friends played, my brothers played, so that's how I ended up starting to play the game.
And a lot of great players coming out of not just New York, but the Bronx specifically. You've got Tiny Archibald came out of there, Rod Strickland, of course, Kemba Walker over the last decade, probably the most famous guy. Keep up with the history of basketball in the Bronx, too, and look up to those guys as you grew up?
Yeah, man. Kemba's more like when I was younger. Mm-hmm. So, Kemba was the man. New York, period, Lance Stevenson, Stephon Marbury, all them dudes, man. Them dudes paved the way for us. So it's been amazing just having role models like that.
Did you ever play at Rucker?
Yeah, I played in the Rucker before, plenty of times.
What's that experience like? Because I think to outsiders, it's like this sort of threshold you have to cross to be able to play on that court. What's that experience like?
New York has over the summer, there's a lot of different tournaments. So, there's 2 Ruckers, actually. There's Baby Rucker and then the real Rucker. So I played Baby Rucker for a little bit, 10 and under, 11 under, 12 under. Then around 14, 15, I played in the real Rucker, 14 under, 15 under. Started going up in age groups. So just different tournaments. So it's been great.
You get back there often? Because I know your parents are in Florida now, right? You obviously finished off high school in there, but you get back often?
Yeah, I go back pretty often. I was there right before we came back to school. So this last break, I was in New York.
And the Bronx, people hear it, they think, Yankees, the zoo, but it's so much more than that, so culturally and ethnically diverse. Does that maybe play into who you are? You're not from Manhattan, you're not from Brooklyn, but you're from the Bronx.
Absolutely. I feel like every borough has their own little traits that they keep with them. And the Bronx is no different, cultural differences. Just the people you meet, people you talk to is just a little different. Every borough is just a little different.
We're talking with Prince Ali, men's basketball preseason showcase coming up on Wednesday at 7 p.m., free to attend. So let's talk some UCLA basketball. You've got a new coach in Mick Cronin, new system. How do you fit in as a player? How do you see yourself contributing on this team?
Coach Cronin's been great. I love the staff that he's brought in. He's just been implementing his philosophies over the past few months. It's been going well. As far as myself, I think my role here will most likely be just being a leader. Being a leader of, we have a lot of young players, just doing things the right way, just things like that, just being a leader.
It's interesting to see you in that role. It doesn't seem that long ago you were throwing down that dunk against Kentucky, and here you are, 5th-year senior. It's kind of crazy to look back on, and now kind of being one of the guys to help lead this team's got to feel a little weird for you.
Yeah, you get thrown into new situations, new roles. I kind of had that role last year also, so it's not brand new. But it's a great opportunity, and I just want to make the most out of it. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to playing these games coming up soon and just getting the season going.
Coach Cronin said yesterday to the media that he had to recruit everybody coming in as a new coach, trying to get them to stay. You graduated and had the option if you wanted to go somewhere else, but obviously you came back here. What went into that decision, and why'd you decide to stay?
I just liked what he was selling. I bought what he was selling. He showed up. He was very genuine. He was very honest. I spoke to him a little bit, did the preseason workouts, and I was just a fan. And, I love LA. I love UCLA. I love this program. I love the school. So, I loved what he was bringing in, and I already love the school, so it was a perfect fit in my opinion.
So what is he bringing in? What are fans going to expect to see at this preseason showcase? And then obviously we got the exhibition and the season opener right on the horizon.
I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing in this showcase, so I don't know what to expect there. But exhibition,
as far as we get to real basketball type
we're going to play hard. It's non-negotiable. He's probably told you that. He tells that us every day. We're going to play hard. We're going to play together. We're just going to be a team. We're just going to treat each other with respect, and we're just going to go out there and try our hardest to win games.
Thanks so much for your time. Excited to see an East Coast guy become a West Coast guy here over these last few years.
Yeah. Don't say that too much. I love the West Coast, man. I got love for both coasts. East Coast to my soul, but I love the West Coast also.
That's Prince Ali here on the Bruin Insider Show. Reminder, tomorrow night's preseason showcase, 7 o'clock in Pauley Pavilion. Free to attend, but help yourself out. Get a ticket ahead of time. Just go to uclabruins.com/MBB showcase. It'll take you 2 seconds to get your ticket. You'll walk right in the door. First come, first serve as far as seating goes, and it'll be a lot of fun. And I'd never noticed before with Prince Ali, the New York accent, but as we talked, I heard it there a little bit. Did you catch the tournament?
He takes pride in that. Yeah. This is what he does, and I can't wait to see this guy. His offense, I feel like it's going to be rejuvenated under Mick Cronin. You look at a frustrating sequence for him at the end of last year. He made 1 of 13 shots from downtown to finish off the season. He had 13 points in the last 4 games. This guy is hungry, he is thirsty, and he is ready to take on a leadership role. And I just think he's going to be a lot more feisty on defense as well.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how he looks. And remember last year, too, when you hit conference play, he had a really great stretch of games, and then he got the foot injury and wasn't able to finish the season. He's hungry. He's ready to go along with everyone else on this team.
Yeah, and speaking of everybody else, what is the rotation going to look like? And there is one player who is recovering from an injury, and he looks good to go. We'll talk more about him after this. But first, you're listening to the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield IMG College.
The Bruin Insider Show continues now. Back out to Platea inside the Luskin Conference Center on the campus of UCLA. Here's Nick Cope and Brian Finley.
You know, as far as this basketball team, Nick, there aren't the standout players like last year, the go-tos, the, as Mick Cronin said, returning first-year or first-team conference, second-team conference guys. It's going to be a bunch of guys working together and showcasing their depth. You spoke with Prince Ali. It looks like he might take over some of the point guard work. Another guy who might take over some of the point guard work is David Singleton. And, of course, he suffered a broken foot during the Pac-12 tournament last year. And we wanted to know when he would be game ready. And it sounds like he's a full participant in practice right now. And that is huge. Led the team in three-point field goal percentage. But as much, Nick, as this offense is going to have so many different weapons, and at this point we just don't know who's going to take leadership or who's going to, maybe it's a different guy every night in the scoring department. I love the attention to detail with the defense because they've got a student manager who, there is a sign plastered on the wall inside the Ostling Center where they count turnovers. You get 7, your team does, in a scrimmage or in a practice, everybody's running lines and everybody's held accountable.
Yeah, it was funny. Mick Cronin said, you know, for some reason, the one thing that really gets people going, they don't want to run. So
Yes,
that's the ultimate motivating factor. I think over the first month, maybe even all the way through the non-conference until we get to conference play, what I'm really curious to see is just all these pieces go together, and that's what this coaching staff is going to have to figure out as well, because you've got so many different combinations that you can play. One of the more interesting guys, I think, is Chris Smith. He's a guy that could play 3 different positions. You could have him at the 2, the 3, even the 4, have a smaller lineup. You could have a larger lineup and have Jalen Hill, Cody Riley, and Chris Smith on the floor at the same time. But I think we're going to see 10, 11, maybe even 12 guys play throughout November and December as you tinker and see which guys fit where. But back to David Singleton, too. Really excited that he is back. I'm sure it'll take a little bit of time before we see him really being out there going, long amounts of time during games. But you're talking about turnovers. He had 12 turnovers all of last season. And if he's going to play some point guard, which he did last year, that's what you want to have as a guy backing up Tiger Campbell.
As good as he is so humble as well. And I think he was asked about, man, how did you only cough up 12 turnovers last year? And he said, look, I don't care about the stats. I'm just here to show up. And he's always seems to be the last guy out of the gym. He's always working on something with this game. And he's so coachable as well. Coach, what do you need? I'll do this. Like, whatever he needs, the coaches tell him he's all for it. Like, he's such a coachable guy. Chris Smith, it seems, what I'm curious to see, Nick, with Chris Smith is where his offense goes. Because as far as his defense, He's going to be a rebounding leader. He's going to be a guy who's going to get a lot of deflections. But as far as his position, which you said, he's kind of positionless in a way. And I even think last year they even rumored to try him at the 1. Remember, there was some work, or there was maybe a little point guard. Yeah, it was like, and I don't know how much that actually came to fruition. But so, like you said, there's so many different positions that he could play. His offensive numbers, he likes to shoot the 3. I think he's under 30%, and he's also around 40% from the field. So, and take this into account. He's in his 3rd year. He's 19 years old. He does not turn 20 until December 24th. I want to see what his offense looks like and if he can really take control in that department this year.
Obviously, you got lots of guys here that are going to factor in, but I think Chris Smith is a real key piece to kind of figure out with this coaching staff and where he fits best, because he has so much potential. Just physically, he looks the part, and he's got the tools to be a next-level player if he can figure that out. So, been fun talking basketball. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up shop, a little bit of football talk, and get you set for all the athletic events on campus this weekend. You're listening to the Bruin Insider Show on the UCLA Sports Network from Learfield, IMG College.
Have you ever had cheesesteak with chicken?
Mike's up.
Welcome back to the Bruin Insider Show from Plataea inside the Luskin Conference Center on the UCLA campus. Your athletic calendar is brought to you by Toyo Tires, the official tire of UCLA Athletics. Did you know people who drive on Toyo Tires love them? Imagine loving your tires. Visit toyotires.com to see why. Well, we've got plenty going on this weekend. We mentioned the men's basketball preseason showcase on Wednesday evening. You got a pair of soccer doubleheaders, Thursday beginning at 5, Sunday beginning at noon, and women's volleyball hosting the Bay Area schools, Stanford Friday at 7 and Sunday also at noon. Women's swimming and diving is home Friday afternoon as well. And, of course, Saturday night, we will all be at the Rose Bowl for the Bruins taking on Arizona State. All curious to see if we can get this going for 2 straight games now.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. Is this going to be an anomaly, or is this a sign that we can carry things over and build some momentum towards the end of the year? Jaden Williams, Arizona State's quarterback, 136 yards of total offense against Utah last week. His lowest output, or the Devils' lowest output, since 122 against UCLA in 2008. So maybe 30. A repeat of that performance for the Bruins defense.
That would be nice. Got to keep Daniels in the pocket. Don't let him run free. That's a big key this weekend.
Yeah, he only had 25 yards through the air, 4 completions, and we're hoping for that
20.
same result on Saturday. 4:30 kickoff for producer David Kahn, David Dukakis, our executive producer, general manager Paul Engel, all-around great guy Ryan Reinecke, engineer Craig Robbins, Danny Harrington, and the rest of the UCLA Athletics communications staff. Nick Cope, Wayne Cook, I am Brian Fenley. Go Bruins. Let's get that win on Saturday.
All right, guys.